Signature Show, and I'm Vin Martin Obiora Ilo. Today I have a special guest on the program. I have Professor Augustine Okereke. Professor Augustine Okereke is a professor of English at the Medgar Evers College, City University of New York. He was a former provost and senior vice president of City University of New York, the equivalence of a vice chancellor in Nigeria. He was also former dean, School of Liberal Arts and Education. He is a professor of African and world literature. But the unique point about it all is that Professor Augustine Okereke is from Arondi Zogo in Imo State. Professor Okereke, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. I'm happy being here too.
Yeah, it's really a privilege for me to be having you in our studio because I've heard so much about your work in the United States, but I know your journey started in Nigeria.
That's correct.
Especially your academic journey started in Nigeria. But before we talk about your academic journey, how did growing up in Nigeria, how has it influenced who you are today?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. For those of us who grew up under the tutelage of certain parents, my father was a civil servant, a very senior servant for that matter, and an academic. He went to, CKC in those days, and his vision every time he will drop that into me is that I have to be a university graduate. When being a graduate was, almost the topmost of all. And he really wanted me to get a PhD. So from when I was young, I was always thinking of getting a PhD. And again, going up from my civil servant, not very rich, but very, very comfortable, I kind of know I will need a title to my name. And those who were invested with chiefs and Nze and also were in those days were people who were either rich or have done a lot for the community, when it was really very well respected. And so I said I will have a title, and that title will be doctor in my name. And so I always have hope that I will get a PhD. And secondly, I have always liked teaching. I like teaching. And I have always wanted to be in the teaching profession. So I worked to be that, So that is how I got into academics and into teaching. And of course, being a teacher also gets you involved in so many other things too. And now I became so much involved in the community. I like to help to develop my community, to work for the community.
You're from Arondi Zogo. Yes, did you grow up in Arondi Zogo with your father being a civil servant?
No, I did not. We grew up in the city. My father was actually moving mostly outside of Igbo land, actually in Port, Egema, at times in the north. So we're moving from city to city. But that was unique in its own way too, because, you have this idea of a wholeness of life, perspectives from different experiences, different cities, meeting different people. And so that kind of have a world view that is kind of complete in itself, through these experiences.
So, at what point did education start for you with this mobility in your dad's career? So, were you moving from one secondary school to the other and all that?
Yes, that was before the war and after the war. Okay, before the war, moving from one primary school to the other. But immediately after the Nigerian Civil War, before the war, I was kind of primary 3, 4. And so what happened was that immediately after the war, due to my academic achievement, I jumped everything. I went into class 1. So I was in the same class with my elder brother then, my father wanted me to be that. And so, I went into secondary school in Olo, stayed just then, BSc, Bishop Shanahan College, Olo. And that was where I stayed my secondary career. And then, then achieving secondary school impacts a lot of knowledge a lot of learning in you, and going to certain secondary schools. And so that formed my perspective of, I've always wanted to be an academic in my life. I was never thinking of any other thing, so I said, this is what will happen.
Did that inform your choice of what you went on to read in the university?
Yes, that's a very kind of similar story. The Bishop Shanahan College is mainly geared towards science majorly, all right? So most of my classmates went into medical, medical doctors, geology, scientific listing. But, I'm kind of a little bit different for the one reason, though. And this reason is kind of will be a lesson for it. It's a lesson for how I educate my children too. So I have this physics professor who was very, very strict, very close friend of my father, very, very close friend. So anytime I mess up in class, he will give me lashes and lashes and lashes, And so the fear. So after class 3, I said, okay, I will drop physics. I will not take physics again, so that I won't take him. And so then, you have to have certain subjects to be in the science. Physics must be there. Chemistry must be there. Biology must be there. So when physics wasn't there, there was no other science subject I would take. And I am an avid reader. Then in secondary school, I was reading all Hadley Chase novels. I was reading all these romance novels from one lady. So we read, if I was reading Shakespeare, in school. So I said, okay, I will go into literature because that kind of interests me. So that is how I went into literature, branched off into the arts. Quite different from the training, from the education we get from BSc, Bishop Shanahan College, all of them. All right. So after secondary school, I attended the College of Education, Okatu, the very first set that was there. And then I was the first set that had the agreement with UNN and Albany Kuku College of Education, Owerri. So I received my bachelor's there, but it's UNN, degree, because we had that collaboration with Albany Kuku. So after that, one thing too is that, those days of politics, there were some names you hear, the way they sound, the way they look. Chuba Okadibo, they would say Dr. Chuba Okadibo, as a young child. Then
you loved it.
Iken Nanzemiro, Dr. Iken Nanzemiro. Dr. Bisiuku, I said, I am going to get a PhD. I'm going to be a doctor. That's just that, it's treated doctor. Those. So
you were like, you had role models.
Yes, exactly.
Even as a young boy.
Exactly.
People you wanted to be like.
Yes, exactly.
Which unfortunately we hear is so absent these days.
Yes. And I can tell you, I have 2 boys, 33, 31, and I know what it means to have role models. I know what it means to be friends in a way, to work with them, to also, let them respect you too and look up to you. I have a daughter who is 27 years old who, like I'm her property, but she talks about her father as her role model. So if we have those role models, that will really help these young kids. And at the college where I teach, predominantly Black institution, we know the importance of guiding those young kids, particularly in Brooklyn, Brooklyn, where you have, these people going astray and all those things, So role model is so important, So I took after, I will always remember him, Dr. Chuba Okadibo, very, very sweet.
Well, you didn't go into politics, or you have not gone into politics.
Yes.
Because Chuba was a politician.
Yeah, I knew I would not go into politics because of the way we saw politics practiced. Is it's something. In those days, it was, my time, we have the legendary Dr. K.O. Mbadiwe, but, when politics becomes something that is not of service to the community, then you say, no, you cannot survive in politics there because they will outrun you because you are there to work while the other ones are not there to serve the community. So I knew I would not get into politics. It's not that, people take political appointments, to do service, but really education is really what I like to do.
But let's do a fast forward. For so many years now, you live in the US. Yes. So how did that happen?
Okay, first of all, I lived in Germany That is so. I was a lecturer at the College of Education, Oka, all right, and I was to attend study leave to further my education. First of all, I went to University of Port, started 1 year, and then had to leave. But, it's not circumstantial, but it's a deliberate choice. People were going to the US, people were going to London. I always like to do something different. So Germany was different for me in terms of where people go to. And I had this professor then, I just knew him through belonging to the African Literature Association. We started communicating. He was interested in African literature, and he wanted to get people to come to get their doctorate through him so that he will also learn too. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to Germany. So I went to Germany for my PhD, and I spent 10 years,
In Germany?
I spent 10 years in Germany from 1991 to 2001. Then I had to apply. I'm one of those who rarely get a kind of job outside of the year. So I got the job into the City University of New York after my PhD.
While you were in Germany?
Yes.
Did you teach in Germany?
Yeah, we thought, Germany has a kind of different system. So I was working under the professor. Professors in Germany are like an institution. So they have a whole host of private docents and all those people outside them. So they offer courses, and I get us to teach. So I was teaching the African literature course for him, even though it was under his name. So after my PhD, I had that experience, before.
So you applied and you went over to the United States?
Yes, and two things influenced my moving over. Number one, my children, particularly. I had my children, all of them there. My two boys were only 7 months and 1 year old in Nigeria when we came over. My daughter was born there. And so they were having no black experience. Where I lived, I was the only, black person around there totally. And so something happened very funny. I went to Essen. We went to visit some black family. And for the first time, we entered inside the room, and there were up to 10 black men there. My two boys, one of them was 3 years, the other one was like about 4 years then, ran away from the room because they saw black men like that for the first time.
And they couldn't understand what that was.
Understand what that was. Because in the school, they were the only black, we were the only black fellows, the only black men. So I said, no. I can't have my children not to grow, at least, if not outside of Nigeria, but to grow where they will know who they are. It's very, very important for you to know where you are from and who they are. And so I said, the best place to go. Coming back to Nigeria, Nigeria is, you can never condemn your country, however, but, with all what's going on, it may not be your first choice of educating children, of living. So I said, okay, I'm going to apply to see if I get a position in the US. And I did. So they came over. And it was a good experience too. They are coming over. Something funny happened the first day. And when they came over first. I was still in Germany. So the first day, the two boys went to school, the primary school where they attended. So they were told to, Kenneth, the first son, wait for your brother after school. Your mom will come and pick you up. After school, the boy went home. He didn't wait. So we asked him, why didn't you go home? Why didn't you wait for your brother? Why did you go home? So he said, why wouldn't I go home? How can I recognize my brother? Everybody looks the same. That at the back of their head, he couldn't identify his brother again because they were all black folks. But over there in Germany, they were all white folks, so he can see his brother from very far. So you see, the lesson there for me is that it's always good to kind of get people to understand who they are. You want to educate people. And so that was the movement there. And of course, I got there are opportunities there, unlike in Germany where there may not be as much opportunity for academic growth for a foreigner like me then at that age too.
Okay, so you ended up in the US. Was it at the City University of New York?
Yes,
that's where you've been all this while?
There, yes, 20.
And what an exciting career. You rose, you were former dean, you were former provost and senior VP, vice president, which is like vice chancellor in Nigeria.
Correct.
That's quite a high height in the United States.
Yes.
What made it possible for you?
Yes.
What were those qualities that got you to that level in a very competitive environment like the United
Yeah,
States.
in the first place, to get the appointment, to get a tenure track position first, even outside of the US was very competitive. But it's hard work, hard work and dedication, loving what you do. So when I came in there, after spending 2 years only there on tenure, I was appointed to lead a program, they call it African Democracy Project, to get students to be civic-minded. These are the kind of things I would like to do, or kind of seeing how we can do that in Nigeria too. So that program got me into the university, got me to know the professors, got me to have a wider perspective of how things work in the college. And I did it so well that I gained recognition, both academically and within the community too. So after 7 years, I was appointed chair of department and dean of school. So, with that, and then establishing programs for students, I was really dedicated to doing that, to promoting students, to getting them to be civic-minded, to working on the curriculum, making sure that the curriculum is kind of responsive to the needs of the students. So I was elected to be chair, and then appointed to be dean, and of course, senior vice president. But it's hard work totally.
An Igbo man, a Nigerian, a black man, rising to this height.
Yes.
How do you relate it with a lot of our people, Nigerians, going or getting to the wrong side of the law? What do you think makes that possible?
Sure. One thing I will have to say is that, most Nigerians, almost about 99.9% of Nigerians do not get on the right side of law because they know their purpose, they know their reason for being there. And particularly for the Igbos, it's really hard work. There were quite a number of Nigerians in the college too. And when I came in newly, one person a former colleague at the College of Education worker, told me that there is no Nigerian, there's no Igbo man who has come to the university and is not tenured. Because after 5 years, then now it's 7 years, you have to be tenured. So you have to work hard to be tenured. So let me not be the first that is not tenured. So you have to work hard. But it's challenging though, it's challenging because of the environment you are. So many competing factors, of course. There's race there's ethnicity in everything that we do. It's quite ingrained somehow. But like I said, it's kind of hard work. You have to read, you have to write, you have to learn to work with people. I just learned to work with the community to do that. I recall after 7 years, I was elected chair of the department. All right. And so the very first day as chair of the department, coming into a different system and everything, so that very first day, lost students lined up trying to change program, trying to sign this, trying to sign that. So I was sweating. But I was signing anything in front of me. Sign, I go. Since I did not sign myself into problem, after that day, I was saying, okay, I will survive. Then you learn the system. You have to understand the system. And so what happened as provost, the college went through a certain, turmoil. We have this in all high institutions. And so they appointed a new president to the college. So this new president came, spent about less than a year. He called me up to his office. I was surprised because I don't expect him. He was quite well known before he came to the college. He was Chancellor of Schools in New York City. Dr. Rudolph Crew is his name. Called me up to the office. He said, I would like to appoint you, dean. And then you go to, I said, dean? I said, oh. I said, okay. That one is quite close to being chair. So I became dean, to go through the process of being permanent. He called me up again and said, I would like you to be the provost of the college. I never thought about that. So I told him, but let me ask you though. He said, yes. He said, you've not known me before. I wasn't here when you were Chancellor of Schools. You've not met me in Adam. What made you think that I can do this work? Then he looked at me, he said, look, Augustine, can I call you Augustine, not Dr. I said, call me Augustine, yeah. He said, people's work speak for themselves. That I've heard about you.
That's great.
Yes.
People's work speak for themselves.
Yes. People's work. That I heard about what you did with the Democracy Project. I heard what you did with the chair of the department, as a chair of the department. So, so I was dean for less than a year. And then I became provost and went through the interview. So I told him, look, let me tell you, Dr. Crew, since you have invested this trust in me, I'm not going to disappoint you. And we didn't, because we did a lot of work, both locally and internationally. We even came to Nigeria to establish joint relationships with the Avani Kuku, and then went to Abuja too to do that. He came with me to Nigeria, and he loved that. He loved coming to Nigeria, coming to Africa for the first time. And he saw the potential of being Nigeria has. And he also saw the challenges too we have in Nigeria. And it was sad for him with the challenges, because he said the black man can do it if the black man wants to do it. So, I recall we flew into Abuja, we flew from Abuja to Port Harcourt. And when we landed in Port Harcourt, that time, their receiving area was like a tent. Can you imagine that international flight with Air France, like a tent? So we landed into port, and he saw the tent, and we moved from Port Harcourt to Owerri. We had the programs with the Bad Road. After 4 days, we flew down to Abuja. So when we landed at Abuja and drove out of the airport, he called me. He said, Provost, do you see how Abuja is? Do you see the roads here? He said, a black man can do it if they want to do it. You see?
So he had seen the other places you guys were.
Yes.
And suddenly he sees this. And he thinks that the potential is there.
Yes.
It's just that we don't want to do it.
Yes. Why can't you do it? We just don't want to do it, but we can do it. It's not rocket science. He just touched me. He said, Provost, look at the beauty, look at the flowers, look at the beauty. I don't know if they sustained it though, but he said, this was in 2018. He said, a black man can do it if they want to do it. And that is it with Africa. That is it with Nigeria. We can do it. It's there, no rocket science.
So how long did you serve as the vice chancellor or the provost?
For 8 years, 8 good years. When I attended the orientation for being a provost, I went 3 places in the country, and they said the average life of a provost is 4 to 5 years. That is, you serve. That is when they serve the most, because being a provost is a very, very tough job. You are in charge of faculty, curriculum, students, affairs, managing the budget, internally, because the president goes out to seek for funding for us to spend. So it's a very tough job, And so mostly 4 to 5 years. But I served for 8 years. I tell them, get surprised, Just that, with a new president comes a new provost too, because the other president I served with wanted to move on. And so he moved on to some other things. So a new president came in, and usually
chose his own team.
Choose your own team. That is the life, but we introduce programs then, programs that will, kind of help the students.
So when you look back, what would you identify as the high point of your tenure as provost of a city University of New York?
The curriculum that we revised, we revised the curriculum, all right? The programs that we established new programs. What I did then was, the healthcare, the health sector is really, the sector that is booming, growing, job opportunities. And as immigrants, coming into the US, my college is actually kind of majorly immigrants too, And so we had to, I tell people, I know I'm professor of English, but I have to help the students, the world is very, very competitive. And if you are a nurse, if you are in lab tech, all those things, the jobs are already there waiting, good paying jobs. And so we introduce programs in that field, to help those students to get employable jobs. And then we did some career-driven skills acquisition training for students, because career-driven programs are the programs that it should be the way. In fact, when I discuss with universities here, I want to kind of see how I could guide, how I could help them to introduce career-driven programs. Even in the English department, and English students could be self-employed through the kind of skills you impact in them. I mean, the internet is blooming, the social media. How can they use social media to help their economy instead of going there just to joke? You spend time on it. You can use that too. And then the universities could train, educate students who will now infuse some level of education, academic importance in social media. We know anybody now who has, you have a cell phone, they can do things, do sketches. But once the university taps into it and starts educating students, I had written a grant with Cole City University here to come into the English department to change their curriculum to infuse skills acquisition, particularly in social media, with the Carnegie Foundation, even though we're not getting that grant. But it's something I want to have further discussions to see how I could use my knowledge to assist universities here to help our students once they graduate. The level of unemployment is very high, but there are opportunities for career development, self-employment.
What you have called career-driven programs
Yes.
or courses.
Courses, yes. In fact, every course should be infused with that in this present stage.
Because there's no employment.
There's no employment, and then you have to face the reality. Every course should be infused with that. And even if there's employment, it's low paying. I mean, so you can use that to further your education. It will help to kind of bring these students out of crime, So you compete with the criminals in keeping these students focused in developing a career.
I'd like to talk about a lot of Nigerians leaving the country because they're in search of greener pastures. Some people have called it brain drain and all that. I'm going to talk about it. But I want to spend a little more time with you on what you have called career-driven programs and what I would also call viability of institutions, educational institutions in Nigeria. And what I mean is, for a university owned by the state, you find out that almost everything they do is subvented. Government has to give them money. Universities are not rich, but a lot of foreign universities are wealthy. They generate money. How can we, from your experience in the United States, at that very high level, how can you advise Nigerian universities to achieve some kind of financial autonomy or kind of financial independence or sustainability, alternatives for Nigerian universities? Because that's a big challenge which has affected even the quality of the students that we produce.
Before I give you the answer, I will have to say this, people have to think. Not that they're not thinking, but I understand bread to eat is the first thing, but the professors have to go in and think of ways that they could generate funding. But I'll give you a practical example of what I've started doing, but we've not had traction yet with 2 universities in Nigeria, with UNN and University of Ibadan. There's what you call executive leadership program. Many of our politicians, even though they prefer to be that's why they will get some dollars, they go to Harvard, they go to Rutgers, they go to all these big universities to acquire a certificate in leadership. All right. So what I have, that is where my friendship with Dr. Uchenneku started. We brought him in at the college to develop a leadership program where we get people from outside to come and take courses in leadership. The former president I referred to, is an excellent educator in leadership. Excellent, excellent. And so our goal with the universities here, that is one thing the university can do, establish a certificate program in leadership where you get the politicians, the bank executives, the businessmen who are wealthy, bring them into the university. You know, you can work with their time, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and pay to get that certificate instead of going to Harvard, going to London, or offer opportunities for developing the politicians. Newly elected government chairman, the governor could say, okay, go to UNN, spend 3 weeks, I'll pay, sponsor them to be able to acquire leadership skills. Mind you, they are coming into that chairmanship with no leadership skill at all. But once you impact them, I benefited from one of those courses as provost before I became provost, and that helped me throughout my tenure. So get them to Nsukka. So Nsukka, any university at all, will organize leadership program and raise funding from them. But you have to be able to sell it to the governor. You have to be able to sell it to the businessmen. You know, the need for such certificates. So that is one aspect. They could generate a lot of funding doing that. We've tried to do that with UNN, with even Renaissance University here, with with University of Ibadan. But our people's mindset to get them to see the value of that, you know, not that they don't know the value, but they want to travel to where they will get it and get some money in their pocket, you know, going abroad, all those kind of things. But that is one aspect of doing that. You see, many of these young men, you know, roadside mechanic, want to acquire skills. You know, a university could do not think only of the bachelor's degree program. If you get to a market, many of those businessmen, many of those traders there may want to acquire skills that will help them to become better traders, better communicators.
So create more courses.
Create courses for them to
weeks, months.
You can even bring it to them. Establish a center in Enugu here where they will come and get a certificate, a career-driven certificate to expansion, how to expand your business. The thing is that we have skilled businessmen, but with education, you could develop. And how will that help the society? The more education you acquire, the more you live happily in the society. So the Onisha trader will now have a modicum of behavior, all right? When he is driving, when he knows, so all those things will have an effect on the society. That's education. And then there's the pride that I got this certificate from this college. So the universities should be thinking about that. Even particularly, I understand the private universities here are struggling. But for them, it's even easier in the sense that the bureaucracy is less in private universities to establish such kind of programs, to help people to develop their community too, to educate the community too.
So in essence, what you're saying is that a university could look at almost all aspects, because I had opportunity of doing a fellowship at Harvard.
Yes.
And one of the things I used to tell my friend when we walked to school is that I pass doors and see courses I've never heard about.
Exactly.
You understand what I mean?
Exactly.
And when I made inquiries, these were people's developed programs.
Yes.
Need-based, programs. Either, a community comes. So, in essence, what you're saying is that the universities should think more of those low-hanging fruits to make them less dependent on just taking school fees and increasing them and all that.
Another example I could give you, they can go to the bank. It could be any bank at all right? Speak with the MD, develop need-based courses so that every 3 quarters, every 3 months, every 6 months. And also, this is from doing this, you can get endowments. Somebody might come to say, okay, I want to endow this chair so that you'll be able to train.
That is actually an area I'd like you to talk about.
Yes.
How could the universities change the mindset of rich Nigerians to be able to support the universities through this kind of endowments? Because I learned that most professorial chairs are created by endowment, by families, by organizations. What would be your advice to the universities in Nigeria to tap into this?
Yeah. My advice first is that you have to have a track record. You have to start doing things in an area that might interest that rich businessman, that rich person. So if you are developing community youth, offering some courses, impacting skills in them, and then you go to this person. We have very benevolent, rich Nigerian businessmen. We have very many of them. So when they see things that you are doing, when they see that track record, they will say, okay, I will invest $100 million this year for you to train youths in my community. It could be targeted to a particular community. So establish a track record. Do something that you use to sell, to say, look, we are doing this, but we want to expand. So if you can help us to endow a chair, a professor, whose job will be now to do this. So do something first, establish a track record, and then sell it to the businessmen. One thing is that our mindset is not, we think that those things are not that necessary because it is not impactful in the community. But show the areas that you have impacted the community, and go to the businessman and tell him to redirect your thinking, your funding towards what we are doing. And so you might endow a particular chair in this field. And that chair, that person, that professor will now undertake it on himself to develop the area that you want him to develop. It won't be easy though, because our mindset, the way we think. But once you do things, you go to the businessman, you go to the bank executives, you go to governments, you go to corporations, I think, achieve some measure of success in doing that.
I know that there are a lot of universities in the United States in technology, engineering. They come with patents for inventions.
Yes.
Is it not something that can be done here too?
It can be. That's what I'm saying. You have to establish the fact that you can do it. You have to prove that you can do it. As provost of Medgar Evers College, the State University of New York, most of the money, discretionary money that I can spend, comes from that kind of funding. So you show that, the community is in need of students who drop out or a lot, or in need of, some kind of civic duties. And so we get money, we apply, we write a grant, and say, okay, this is what we want to do. And you demonstrate that you can do it. All right. And so that is something that the universities are not tapping into. We tried to run this program over there with Dr. Okwu at Ibadan, in fact, outreach to the speaker, in fact, somebody went to the vice president. You have the House of Assembly, a whole House of Assembly. These people come in with no leadership skill whatsoever. At times, it's the much they know. I say, come, just 1 week, we'll offer some leadership skills, impact it in them. But of course, you have to pay, which is peanuts to what they can do. But it's kind of difficult to get traction to do that.
Because sometimes I look at this Igbo boy system.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if a university would create a program because most of them would have done secondary school.
Yes.
To do that, and create a program where they can be certificated for 6 months or 3 months, and fine tune, the practical thing they have done.
Yes.
That kind of program would bring a lot of money for universities.
When you talked about need-based courses, need-based programs, that is what the community has been doing. All right. So one thing with our development is that it just stagnates, just there. But the university could take that in, as you just said, then infuse some academic, some learning, some practical things into it, and elevate it, and it grows. So that is what a course that could be brought into the university to develop, and then look at other areas, to other things that we do in the community. bring it into the university. That is actually what the university should be doing for the community. Bring it in, and then get that not only for those ones there, even for your graduates. There's a program we established at the university there, where any student who graduates from this college must get a certified job-seeking program, a certified career-driven program. Even if you are an English major, you have to take a career-driven program that you can, branch into, that will lead you into immediate employment. Even though, as I left, provost, it's not the priority of this, so I do not know where it is now. But it's something also, the graduates too, your graduates could also take that course, because when they go, it will be part of expanding their horizon in terms of job seeking. An English student can even start in the community organizing such things that you just said now, that Igbo boy system. There are many, many things that the Igbo culture has that we can use to make money, sustain the university, and develop the community.
Okay, I wish we'll have hours to talk with you.
Yes.
But let's see what we can get in this little time that we have. Brain drain.
Yes.
The economic situation in the country, the high level of unemployment has made a lot of our graduates, our best brains, look for greener pastures. And some people think it's even affecting our development. What are your thoughts? And what will be the best approach to stop this brain drain in Nigeria?
And that is when you go to see the achievement of Nigerians, of Igbos outside of the US, you will marvel. The highest educated in the US, you go to universities, those who are making money, you go to whatever area of business, of life, they are all there, all right, and they are doing very well. The thing is this, so the answer is just right there. The government has to develop a system. The government has to be efficient. The government has to create opportunities. It has to do the work that they are set out to do. All right. So if you create an environment where there are opportunities, people will stay. I wouldn't have left but for the opportunity, and nobody will want to not go where there are opportunities. All right. And so government has to create an enabling environment for people to stay and to work and to earn a decent living. That is one very major thing. The government has to. Once you create it, one thing is that, in places like Nigeria, we depend on government for 100% funding. I'm not saying that government has to fund everything. Create an enabling environment.
What can people like you do to point most of these brains outside back to Nigeria? Like a solution-based initiative. Yes, Nigeria has its challenges. Yes, Nigeria does not have the good environment. Yes. How can people like you, with the kind of expertise and experience you have, how can you start pointing our people back to direction? In that direction of, we need to help our country.
Yes. They know this, and I can tell you they want to come back home.
Because a lot of them have made all the money they need to make.
Yes, but the environment, that's what I said, you have to create an enabling environment, an environment that will enable them.
Give me an idea.
So many of them have...
Give me an idea of what
for example, within the universities or within the area. In fact, one example is right there, insecurity. Let's just play that. Somebody wants to establish a business in Nigeria, in Igbo land, in my hometown. How can he? That is basic. How can he? It's quite impossible. I came home for a burial ceremony. I can barely stay. I hide. So how can you invest in that? So that environment, if you create it, some of them have come back home, but after 3, 4, 5 years, they'll be so frustrated, they'll rush back again. So that environment is not, people really want to come. I want to, part of my outreach now is to see the universities I can work with. I want to come and stay for 1 year sabbatical leave, and that will be a precursor for me to want to start coming back home. All right. And so if the environment is there, if there is insecurity, if there is the opportunity, for them to come back, you give people the free hand to be able to help to advance the cause of a society. They will come. They will come. I can assure you that. And creating that strategic partnership, like the one we created with Alvan, but it's not sustained. Alvan University of Education. So it's not sustained. It's one way of doing that. And part of what I want to do is, I would like to do that, sabbatical here, creating partnerships with all those, with the universities and with Nigerians in the diaspora, so that they can come back home to be able to, invest. And once you create it, they will come. They will come. If you create that environment, create strategic partnerships for them to come home and to do work, they will do that. But like you said, practical solution. Yes, what is practical? What is practical?
I mean, like, is there way high-end people like you? Forgive me, but yes. What I mean, it's people that have achieved the level of career that you have achieved. Is there a way people like you can formalize a relationship with the governments in Nigeria? Do you have like a body that it's trying to, partner with government to share some of these ideas?
Yes, there are some bodies, but like I said, that is really one of the goals. That is really one of the reasons why I come home very often now, to be able to, have that inroad into governorship. It's not easy in Nigeria I do not know, something that is so easy, it's made difficult. You want to have a conversation with people in government. All right, it's not, you have to go through here, you get frustrated. By the time you finish getting that appointment, 3 or 4 weeks is over and you want to rush home. So it is a mission of mine, really, to do what you've just said, so that we get into government, let them see the opportunities, let them see the reasons why people will come back home to help to build the society, but not that to invest too into the society, but the government has to, like I always use this word, enabling environment. I've been trying with Dr. Eko to get into some top universities, get into government. We get into those people, but the sustenance of the discussion, the implementation is the problem. So after some time, you get frustrated, you leave, but people like me are not getting frustrated. I see the hope in Nigeria. I see the potential in Nigeria, despite the insecurity, despite the corruption, despite the level of government decadence. We see that. But I see hope in Nigeria too.
Because I was actually going to talk more about the Nigerian challenges. I mean, for people like you in the diaspora, when you look towards home, when you visit, when you come up with great ideas that you think will be good for your country, what are the frustrations? What are the challenges? What comes to your mind?
Number one, the takers, the buyers of these ideas, as they think about your ideas, they are thinking of how will this idea generate money for my pocket. The level of corruption is so much. He's thinking of how can we? I know when I went to Abuja to discuss with a very senior government official, after discussing, he said, these things now you have to bring, when you bring this guy and all these things, you have to know how to put some money in our pocket, what will come from there, what percentage, that kind of discussion. I didn't come with money to invest. I came with ideas, all right? And so that is a very major challenge. That is a very major challenge. The level of bureaucracy, which is fueled by corruption, impedes progress, impedes what we want to come and do. And so you get frustrated at the end. Everybody is thinking of not the program, not the success of the program. They are thinking of
what they will get
from the pocket. And that is what is at the back of their mind. anything you are saying is blah, 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 blah.
Okay, we are running short of time, but one of the accusations that have been made about people in diaspora is funding non-state actors that are causing mayhem, that are, funding killings, all in the name of agitation for one thing or the other. It's an accusation. So I'm asking, do you guys care to hear that most of you outside Igbo land, outside Nigeria, are the ones that are making funds available to non-state actors to make life difficult for the Nigerians that you, forgive me, you guys, like you say in the US, keep telling us that you're thinking about every day?
Yes. And that's I agree with you totally, not only making life miserable for Nigerians, for themselves too. Because when we hold these discussions, I tell them, you are funding this Biafran agitation, but you can come home. You cannot come home and sleep in your father's house because of insecurity, because of what you are funded.
So what would you think would be the best way to go about this?
The best way to go about it is for them to stop, we try to educate them, all right? Agitating for Biafra, this is not how to agitate for Biafra. You have handed over the thing to criminal elements, to hoodlums. They use you under the gap of that. So stop doing that. There are many forms of agitation. Those who have agitated successfully in Ireland did not agitate by killing their own people.
You're talking about the Sinn Féin.
The Sinn Féin. What they did was that I never heard of any Sinn Féin going to their own home base, in their own village, to kidnap people, to kill people that you want to free. You go to you create impact by those you want to wrest that from. So why are you funding this? So stop the funding. I understand now the funding is drying low, and that is why it will work. The funding
so they need to change their style.
They need to change their mindset. They need to change their mindset. And then one thing that when I go back, I think about that. All those people who are funding this thing, get the awareness of the government over there that these people are promoting terrorism.
Back home.
And once they become on their feet, once they get into them, they will stop. It's not Nigeria.
Let me conclude by asking you, how do people like you, your families, the Igbo community, the Yoruba community in the diaspora, how do you connect with our culture? How do you connect with our tradition? How do you connect with our way of life?
As an Igbo man, we love our culture. We love Igbo Amaka. We love who we are. And so we organize community-based organizations. Despite my achievements, despite where I'm the secretary of my local union, R&D Zogo Patriotic Union. I'm their secretary. I do a lot of community work. We organize Ikeji Festival. We organize things for we try to get our kids, children, which is challenging to get into our culture. So we love our culture. We organize, we meet every month. All right, we meet every month. Or every month we go to each other's homes, eat, drink, and commune with each other and discuss security at home, discuss development at home too. And so that has helped that connection in Igbo land.
Oh, great. And how often do you come home to enjoy the original Ikeji?
Yes, I come home and I come home every let me just say every Ikeji since 2021. I come home every year. I didn't come home this last year because of insecurity too. Insecurity is a problem. Really, we have to tackle insecurity. It's really
in the country.
It's really killing development.
Well, we'll end our conversation. It's been really a pleasure.
Thank you.
Talking with you, Prof.
Thank you.
And one of the words I want to take away that I would want to push is this career-driven programs. Necessitated programs.
Yes.
Programs that can make graduates employable even outside what they have read primarily.
Correct.
Professor Augustine Okereke, I must thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been really a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Well, I've been speaking with Professor Augustine Okereke, who is a professor of English at the City University of New York, former provost, or what we call vice chancellor of the City University of New York. Farmer Din, Farmer this, and as we say, Farmer that.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Vin Martin Obiorilo in Enugu, Nigeria. Thanks for watching, and let's do this again very soon.
Thank you.